Welcome. I'm back. If you were watching last night and you saw that I disappeared, well, I'm back. So it should have been 7 days, but apparently I'm not going to go into too many details, but most of you probably realized that something happened last night with my live. It got canceled, not by me, by the powers that be, because we were talking about apparently something that maybe we shouldn't have been talking about, and that was, of course, the files. So we're going to steer away from that. The account was supposed to be down for living for 7 days, but apparently I am back and broadcasting again on TikTok. So that's good. I'm also broadcasting on the other platform. So as more and more people join, I'm going to take guests, and I want people to answer that question because after I was terminated last night, and interesting enough, I appealed, but I didn't hear anything back from TikTok, but I just went ahead and see if I could do a live, and I could. So apparently that restriction was limited or removed from my account, and I'm able to live again, which is great. So we're going to have a lively discussion for this live. There were several hundred people in the room yesterday when we were talking about the files, but now we're going to talk to something that's a little bit more near and dear to my heart, which is eliminating corruption from our political system. Because when I was doing the live last night and after it got shut down, I went and joined another person's live, and I learned a lot of interesting things about what they were doing and what they thought they should be doing in terms of what was the most important thing. I always say it's eliminating corruption, because if you want to bring or remove the divide between red and blue, you're going to need to eliminate corruption as the key tenet of, it's not an issue, right? It's a principle and it's a value that we should be doing that. So it looks like that, I don't know if TikTok's not sharing this live as widely as it normally does, but if you're scrolling by and watching, you want to jump in the box and talk about, because there were some people last night in the live that I jumped into with that thought that eliminating corruption is not the most important thing. And I'm always here to learn. And maybe someone can convince me that eliminating corruption by the billionaires and corporations and special interests and all the special interests is not the most important topic or subject matter of our time. And for Generation X, Y, and Z, if we want to bring representation back to the people, I don't see how you can do that without eliminating corruption. But some people might think it's the economy. Some people might think it's a different message. And ultimately, it can't be this pendulum that's just going back and forth between blue and red, because that's nonsense, right? Where the problem is not that red wins and then blue wins. That's the problem. That's actually just a pendulum, and we're actually not solving any problems. And we're all fighting with each other. Like I always say, it's left versus right, red versus blue, MAGA versus liberals, all this distraction, all this noise, and all this deflection, when the real problem is that, right? At least in my mind, it's eliminating corruption by special interest billionaires and corporations. So thanks for more and more people joining. I want to know what you think, what other people think. Is there something more important than eliminating corruption? Is it the economy? Is it a particular issue? And ultimately, how does that really make our lives better? Of course, the economy could be something. There's some really valid issues on the economy, whether you can't afford food or housing or transportation or healthcare. Those are all really important issues. But we keep fighting about the same things, and we're not making anything different. So overturning Citizens United, of course, I talk about that a lot. So thanks for that comment, Pete. Citizens United was just sort of the last guardrail. Campaign finance reform campaign finance regulation has been getting decimated ever since the 80s. So Citizens United was just a law, and that put into place that meant that corporations are people and that money is speech, and that just removed all the guardrails. And that was really important, or detrimental to our system, of course, but it was also Reagan in the 80s and Clinton in the 90s and Bush in the 90s that all removed the guardrails for campaign finance reform. Citizens United was just like the last nail in a coffin that created this sort of corruption level that we have today. And that's obviously, but we can't just overturn Citizens United because it's just a law. And that means a law can be overturned again, just like abortion. We thought the abortion issue was relatively solved, but we kept fighting over it. Now, of course, that abortion precedent has changed again. So it has to be an amendment. It can't be just a law. So overturning Citizens United, the way you really do that is by having a 28th Amendment that says that all elections need to be publicly funded by individuals, meaning human beings, and not corporation special interests. And money is not speech, and it has to be very, very limited. And the only way to truly do that, in my mind, is a constitutional amendment. And they are possible. Don't think to yourself that they're not possible. It is possible because your congressional leaders aren't banning stock trading, right? So even something as simple as that, where most people know that you shouldn't be stock trading, they're not banning that. We know that 89% of the American public, including gun owners, want federal background checks to be standardized. They're not also doing that. Like, we can't even do the most simple things that the vast majority of the public wants. And we're trying to think, oh, we're going to overturn Citizens United. No. You might think that you can replace your politicians with somebody better. You really can't, because there's only, right now, in practical purposes, there's only two choices. So we need to do more. And as I always say, it's 50 to 70 million people that need to come together, both from the red and the blue side, to target a principle or a value that elections need to be publicly funded, and that being a politician cannot be a career. It has to be a temporary civic service. So let's take a look. Not being exposed. I wonder if that had anything to do with last night, my channel being whacked. But I'm back now. But obviously, there's not a lot of people here in this. So let me know if there's anyone that wants to jump in the box and tell me what issue is more important than eliminating corruption from our political system. Again, it does seem to be exposed this live to a lot less people than it was last night. And again, I wonder if that has something to do with the channel being temporarily, I guess now it's maybe it's on probation now, who knows. Again, I was talking about the files yesterday. We were not spreading misinformation or hateful speech or anything like that, but for some reason, the live got taken down. So anyway, I don't want to drag on about that. Most of you probably weren't here. There's only 10 of you here at the moment. But what else can we do? Like, I was talking to a group last night on a live, and they were adamant that we should be talking about specific issues, whether it's affordability on the economy, whether it's healthcare and other things. And that's great. I think those are really important, but I don't think they're the most important things, because even if, let's say, if you're a liberal, which I'm not, so I am a fierce independent. If you're a liberal, you might think you want it to go back to blue, but then you're still going to have half the country, a powerful half of the country, relatively speaking, that's going to be angry, and then it's going to swing back the other way. And this constant bickering and fighting and divide and conquer is tearing us apart. But the thing that won't tear us apart, that will bring us together, is that. I think it's that. And I want to know from anybody else, what else is more important than eliminating corruption? And when I say corruption, so it's all the big money from the special interests, the billionaires, and the corporations. And when it comes to special interests, there's so many of them. There are hundreds of them, right? There are foreign agents. There are corporations. There like the foreign agents, like I mentioned. You also have the corporate monarchs. You have the NRA. You have so many different special interests that are fighting to control our politicians to some extent. And that's what I was talking about last night a little bit. And that's why I think the live was possibly taken down. Let's see what else. So there's a lot of new messages and comments. So let's see what we have. If anyone wants to jump in the box and tell me, like, I really want to know, is there anything else that to you, it could be to you. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I'm going to try and persuade you unless you figure out something else that's more important, because I know that people on the MAGA side and on the liberal side, MAGA calls this the deep state or the swamp, and the liberals call it oligarchy. It's all the same thing. It's just a matter of all the influences and all the money that is buying our politicians, getting them elected. And then, of course, they have that influence that they have to be able to, meaning our politicians, have to answer to them and not us, right? That's what it really comes down to. We're supposed to have a democracy. We know that we don't. Well, technically, we have a representative democracy, but in practice or functionally, we have really what's a corporatocracy or a plutocracy. That's what's really happening in terms of functional form of government that we have today. And it's not obviously a full representative democracy. And some people say it was never fully representative democracy, and that's probably true. There's always been corruption. There's always been money in politics. It truly doesn't have to be that way. If we wrote it into the Constitution, and remember, the Constitution is the law of the land. And some people think civics is boring. It's not boring. It's nothing more important to your life and to my life and to our future generations than making sure that people in government are following the laws of the land. This is not a government issue per se in terms of the documents. This is a people problem. And that's what people need to understand, that we have bad people in government and we need to replace those bad people in government, people with no character, no moral integrity, just indecent human beings. And that's not everybody, but that's most of the people in positions of power that have accepted large swaths of money from special interest groups, billionaires, and corporations that also are not paying their taxes, right? They're not paying their fair share of taxes. And that's why we're all getting screwed as regular Americans. So normally I have a lot of people wanting to jump into the box and tell me, I don't know if this topic is maybe just not that exciting to people. I think it's paramount to our lives, but is there anything else? Just give me, and by the way, thanks for the likes, sort of housekeeping. Thanks for the likes. It really helps this channel get exposed to more people. I think my account might be on probation due to something that happened last night. But again, I was doing nothing wrong, nothing against the community guidelines. And I think my appeal worked. And that's why I'm back on the live today. But it's reaching far fewer people than it normally does. Maybe everybody's eating dinner. I don't know. I'm just in one time zone, so not everybody's eating dinner at the same time. So hey, Brian, what's up? And thanks. So anyone else want to jump in the box and answer this question for me? What issue, I don't think it's really an issue, by the way. I think it's a value or a principle that is more important than eliminating corruption from our political system. Join me and tell me why, and hopefully this live will grow. And if this is not a topic that people want to talk about, we can talk about something else. Yesterday's live had hundreds of people in it, and today's not as much. But thanks for all the likes and all the gifts. Again, that probably helps expose these lives to more people. And my goal, of course, is to, over time, over the next several years, to stop getting people to, or get people to take their heads out of the sand, both the red side and the blue side. Take your heads out of the sand. Realize that we're fighting with one another over issues that, yes, are material and they are important, but they're not the most important thing, not by a long shot. The most important thing is, issue number one is corruption. Thanks, Don the girl. I mean this earnestly when I say this. Like, I wonder, because I was on a live yesterday and people were telling me that we need to have better messaging. They were actually liberals and they were promoting Democratic policies and so forth. And they thought that it was really important that the message has to be right. And I think it's more important. I don't think it's more important. I know the messenger is more important, and then the message. And it doesn't matter if you're doing a hopeful message or a hateful message. The messenger matters. And that's why you have MAGA and Donald Trump, because they had I say this reluctantly, to some people, a hopeful message, but at the same time, they had a hateful message. And it was the messenger. For whatever reason, he was able to deliver these very simple messages. And the people, the Democrats, they're so messed up, right? They're so messed up. They can't get their shit together. Since basically Obama, the people that they put forth as presidential candidates, it's been a mess. They had possibly Bernie Sanders, but then that was a whole fiasco with Bernie Sanders. And then, of course, after Biden stepped down, they didn't even have a primary, and they just put forth Kamala Harris, who you could say was certainly experienced and qualified to be president in terms of pure qualifications, being a prosecutor and knowledgeable about the government, but she was never someone that polled ever well or did really well in the primaries. And That was a problem for a lot of people. It certainly seemed like it, that you could vote. I mean, at the end of the day, as ridiculous as it sounds, is that people want someone that they can relate to or they like. And that's ridiculous that you have to like the person. All you have to really care, all I care about is, do they have moral integrity? Do they have character? And can you trust them? And are they experienced? But the first three things, more important. But the Democrats have been such a mess for so long, not listening to their party. But these people that I was speaking to yesterday really believe that it was about the message. They have to talk about how people are losing their Medicaid and how inflation is happening. And those are really important things. I believe they are important. But I think this is so much more important that people can rally, because I've done these videos and I've done videos that have over 100,000 views where I have thousands of comments that say, yes, we need to do this. And they're from MAGA and liberal and everywhere in between that say, yes, this is the number one issue, eliminating corruption. Because my point of view is if you can, and I know it's a big lift, and I know it sounds to some people impossible or even delusional, but it's not. But if you could eliminate corruption from our politics and replace all the existing politicians from both parties with people who had character and morals, and they represented the people because they're not being influenced by the money that's paying them to get elected, then you can change or affect or fix every single other issue. So I don't care if you're talking about immigration or you're talking about the economy or whatever it is, abortion, gun rights, everything else can be fixed. But we can't fix it unless we come together united around a certain issue or two, and that has to be the message. And I truly believe that this has to be the message right there. So if anyone wants to join me, I haven't seen anybody in the comments suggesting that this is not the most important issue, which I think would validate that most people believe this to be true, but I don't know. Single issue bills that would help with calling out lobbyists. I think we need to go. I think I understand where you're going, Jamie. Is it Jamie? But I need to go deeper. Just a constitutional amendment that bans all special interest money, billionaire money, and corporations, like overturning, which would eradicate Citizens United. It wouldn't overturn it. It would just eradicate it. And then you could only have publicly funded elections. So then the people that we elect would have to represent the people and not corporations. And of course, there needs to be, you can't enrich yourself while you're in government. So all those things have to be put into an amendment. And there are 27 amendments right now in the Constitution, and you can add more. But the existing politicians won't do it, right? They're not going to vote themselves out of power, and they're not going to enact term limits on themselves. So we know that's not true. So the only thing is that we have to have enough people. So I'd ask you to follow me here, because this will be my mission over the next few years, however long it takes, is to continue to pound home the message that let's eliminate corruption. Let's get 50 to 70 million people. I know it sounds like a big number, and it is a big number, but it's not impossible. So thanks for following. I appreciate it. My account has been growing quite fast. I am concerned that I need to be on more platforms and grow the audience further. And there needs to be also hundreds of other people that are trying to do something similar like I am. And that's not just complaining. So you could take the people on the right. Let's take the right-wing propagandists. So the Charlie Kirks, the Ben Shapiros, the Jordan Petersons, even Joe Rogan, the Candace Owens, all of them, right? They're all manipulating and poisoning young people's minds to blame somebody else for their problems. And then you even have it on the left. You have the people on here that are constantly debating, did you vote for Trump? Tell me why. And that's like, I see it constantly, right? You see it from Dean Withers, you see it from Parker, you see it from other people. And they're doing the same thing. Maybe you can consider them, they're not as nefarious, but they're basically doing the same thing. They're just belittling people and calling them out and making money and grifting off of social media instead of actually thinking about solving problems. So Trump was impeached twice, but that didn't do anything. I agree. We have to expose it. Thanks, Jamie. James, easy way to get out of paying your bills. It's as easy as to get out. I'm not sure where you meant with that, James. And I don't know. Bingo, doughboy. All right. Does anyone want to join and chat with me about, is there anything more important than eliminating corruption? Because I don't think there is, but I could make an argument, or I could see people making an argument that it's the economy, right? Because running on changing the economy or improving the economy has always been successful, right? It's the economy, stupid. Um, that has been something that's always gotten people elected, and maybe the number one issue. People care about, can they afford food? Can they afford housing? Are their jobs paying them enough? Can they afford healthcare? And you can make an argument that that matters. But according to some of the statistics, in some statistics, the economy seems to be doing amazing, right? With the stock market. But that's not something that most people don't have a lot of money in the stock market. And it represents only a small portion of the population that has a significant amount of money in the stock market. And then, so then you have food and housing, and of course, inflation. Inflation has been out of control for a while. The tariffs are not making it any better, it's making it worse. And of course, the jobs numbers are just horrific. The jobs numbers are horrific. So maybe you could run on the economy, but that just swings it back to maybe the blue side of things. So, see, Mr. Global, you're back in here. Doughboy, welcome. You're up first. Is there anything more important than eliminating corruption? Hey, man.
Sure. Can you hear me first and foremost?
I can. Let's see how if our delay is okay or not.
Yeah, a couple things I would add. You mentioned economy. I think that's pretty critical, especially now when we have two generations that will be not equal to, but worse off, and in many cases, significantly worse off than uh, their parents.
Yeah, Gen
Uh,
Z and millennials, right?
yeah, and I think that's kind of, see, all this shit's interconnected. There's a growing malaise that has overcome uh, society, and I don't want to get off on some sociological tangent, but there is a lot of purposelessness out there, and that might just because of, and I'm sure there's a multitude of reasons for that too. Consumerism,
Mhm.
the banality of the office job as exemplified in uh, office space, right? You could even take the approach that there's this purposelessness because there's not unity within the country. 9/11 was probably the last kind of opportunity to be unified because after the fall of the Soviet Union, they couldn't just lie, steal, and pump that military industrial complex without us questioning. And then they gave us 9/11. And, you know.
Right.
So there's lots of things. I think it comes down to what you said. So I'm more on your side, but I think there is, you know, many reasons for this. And I think the only way to fix that is, it sounds cliche, but by being truthful, and that's done through education, yada, 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 fair wages. So,
Yeah, but
uh,
education, you'd have to invest in education, right? You'd have to invest in your society, and government is not doing that either. And if most of the education is coming, news and education, not, when I say education, I use that loosely, but when information in the information age, when most Gen Z and even young millennials are getting their news and misinformation from social media, which is controlled by the same forces, the special interest billionaires and corporations, and just a very small group of them, right? Basically, like 4 or 5 billionaires that own the majority of traditional media and social media. Like, how are you even supposed to? And you consume so much information from these platforms. Like, how do you get educated, right? You'd have to invest in schooling, which we're not doing, and you'd have to have steep regulations on information that's coming through social media.
yeah, I don't know that you necessarily need regulation. I don't think you're going to be able to sell that, not without some very widespread sort of revolution-esque type scenario, which we might have.
Yeah, I think
Probably,
it's kind of absurd though, because that word regulation is viewed as so negative, right? Government, smaller
sure.
government, get out of my way. But it's so absurd because the only mechanism we have as a society to protect ourselves is government. And government's main lever to make sure that we're not exploited in so many different ways is through government regulation, right? So regulation, yes, it can be burdensome,
Agreed.
but it's we're always thinking that government is the enemy, and it's not the solution, right? Government's the problem, not the solution, which I understand it's inefficient and all of these things, but it's our only mechanism, the only lever we have.
It's actually not that inefficient. It's actually quite efficient, but it's just the big lie has been sold.
That's somewhat true. I agree with that. You could take any large corporation, and I've worked for many of them, and you would argue that, they think corporations, because they're run by a CEO, they're so much more efficient. That's such bullshit, right? There's so much
Yeah.
bureaucracy in large
Another way
corporations.
bureaucratic.
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
What'd you say the word was?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you. But again, that goes back to I'm sorry? Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we're losing you a little bit.
I think I'm cutting out, man.
Yeah, all right. Well, jump back in if you can later.
What was your question again? Okay, sure, will do. Thanks for the convo.
All right, we had to kick him. We had to kick Doughboy. I love the username only because his connection was not so great. But he had I think there was some good dialogue there about obviously talking about government is not the problem. It is the solution. Government's always a problem. If used properly, Mr. Global, absolutely right. Looks like we have a pretty small batch of people in here today. Does anyone want to add? Sorry. It's been a long day. Does anyone want to see if they can answer this question, or whether you agree with me or disagree? Like, is there anything more important than eliminating corruption? And the strange thing is, no one talks about it on a regular basis, right? It's sort of like it gets drowned out by all these other issues that we fight about versus actually talking about the root cause. To reiterate, though, it gets back to the crux of your argument, the lie that in government inefficient. Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Doughboy. I agree. That's what age do we start getting poisoned? Like at the day that we're born being poisoned by all these phrases and cliches that government needs to be smaller, government is big brother, government is the problem, not the solution. I mean, there's so many phrases that we are pounded with between when we're born and the time we're 20. We've heard negative phrases regarding government tens of thousands of times. And it's so absurd because who is doing that to us? If you look at it, when corporations raise their prices during COVID, and then they claim it's inflation, but they're the ones that raised their profit margins. It was really most of it, or much of it, was greedflation. It was the fat cats and the billionaires and the corporations just using as an opportunity to make more money. And then, of course, they blamed it on inflation because, of course, inflation went up. But that's what happens when you raise your prices and you're doing it for profit margins, then you have inflation. So it was manipulated inflation. It wasn't the fault of government. Inflation happened all around the world during that time, but the American corporation just increased their profit margins. And it doesn't come back down, right? Once they increase their profit margins, they have a fiduciary responsibility to their stockholders that they don't want to cut their earnings. So they're not going to reduce those profit margins. They rarely ever do, right? So they typically just can keep increasing their profit margins and not reducing them. But of course, they blamed it. Corporations would just sit by and sort of blame it on the government. And so did everybody else, because that's what most people do, is they blame everything on the government when it was really something else happening at that time. Grover Norquist once said that he wants government so small that he can drown it in a bathtub. Yeah, so ridiculous, right? We're 370 million Americans. We have 2% of our population works in some form of government. But when you have a $5 trillion economy, I agree that you should have the right size government to handle the size of your economy and your people. I mean, we have IRS, we have, you have bridge inspections, you have all kinds of things that government. So 2% of the workforce being in government is actually a pretty small number. And I think it's the smallest number we've had in government over the past 30 or 40 years. So it's not a large percentage of our population that works in government. So people that think government is too big, I don't know what you're actually talking about when you think it's too big. Welcome, Mr. Global.
It's good to see you back on.
I bet you didn't expect to see me. I didn't expect to see me here.
Well, I just looked you up on YouTube and I was like, I wonder if he's on. And then the way you were talking, I was like, wait, I think he might be back on TikTok. So then I looked on TikTok and you were back on. So
Yeah,
that
for
makes me happy.
I don't want to use too many keywords here, but obviously something happened last night and they suspended the account because we were apparently talking about a topic that they didn't think was appropriate.
Yeah.
And but I appealed it. I didn't get any response that the appeal was accepted, but I just happened to go into the app and say, well, the option's there. Let me try and do it. And it worked out.
I had the I was listening to Doughboy and I think he was kind of going off on like eliminating corruption would just be like simply just telling the truth. And I feel like that is a really simple yet effective way to eliminate the corruption, right? Like to just tell the truth about everything. I feel like that would solve all of our issues.
Well, how do you get people to tell the truth, right? Other than
And then
having
who
integrity.
determines yeah, and then who determines what the truth is, right?
Are you
I
talking
think
about media specifically or elected officials?
elected officials, yeah, I mean just all in general, just a general like let's just be truthful, like, that's
Well, if they didn't have to back the party line and they didn't have to accept money from special interests and represent the people, it would be much easier to be truthful, right? They wouldn't have to lie.
exactly. No, I totally agree.
You know, I'd like to talk about a more controversial topic like we were last night because this, and I don't know if I should actually try and do that again and maybe just be a little bit, you know, round the edges off a little bit. So, because I
The
have no idea whether it was a human moderator or it was an AI community guidelines moderator. Who knows? No, I don't know. They don't tell you anything.
I noticed I said we need some more controversy, and then it was like the couple of lives later, you went immediately to the whole list thing,
Hmm.
and then I was like, "Oh, he went really controversial," which is good. It's obviously a topic we have to talk about. At least we should. But anyways,
Yep, yep. So maybe I'll try it again. I think it was maybe the caption was a little too controversial because it had the word, something up, and I think that was maybe the issue
yeah.
as I sent you that message last night. So let's see if there's any more. Doughboy, we had to drop him because obviously his connection wasn't great. Is there anyone else that wants to tell me if there's anything more important than eliminating corruption? I mean, heard something that I obviously missed that Doughboy was trying to convey. Obviously, he seems very knowledgeable about many facets.
Well,
But
I think his connection seemed like it kind of got better. So if he wanted to come back up, I feel like he should.
yeah, yeah. Doughboy, if you want to come back in, just send a request and I'll have you come back in. You know, it was interesting last night, Mr. Global, as were you here for when I mentioned I was in a different live last night?
I don't recall that. No.
Okay. So I was in a different live after can I even say the word? Restricted, eliminated. I don't know what the word.
You got booted.
I got booted. Right. There you go. I got booted last night. So I went on to a different live that was quite popular and they seemed really like nice, really nice people. And it was talking about, they were more liberals. They were heavy liberals and talking about aspects of what they think they need to do to take power away from the Republicans, right? And have Democrats win. And it was interesting speaking to them because they were talking about messaging, about the economy and the issues, right? You know, how even it's affecting a lot of MAGA rural farmers and so forth are being affected. Medicaid is impacting people in West Virginia and everywhere else. And they were just really saying we need to lean heavily on the messaging around the economy or the issues that are affecting people. And I can commend them for that, and they're not wrong. But the problem is, it doesn't seem like people pay attention to issues because Trump ran on basically no issues other than saying, he's going to get rid of immigration, but he never had like any legislation that he was proposing. He just had
Right.
words. So they were really adamant that the Democrats need to have better messaging, and I was like, I don't know, like I just don't see it. Like I think the messenger is more important than the messaging because you need to have both, of course, but They think that as long as they thought that Kamala, if she had better messaging, could have won the election. And I thought that was absurd. Like, I don't think that was ever going to happen because for whatever reason, to a lot of people, she wasn't likable, even though she was qualified, but she didn't seem to be likable, which is an absurd sort of point of view. But that's been ever true since the last 50 years. Like for some reason, our presidents have to be likable.
I think it was the whole Kamala thing, or I get in trouble for even saying her name because I can't get it right apparently. But correct. I mean, from my perspective, it was just like, Biden was really wanting to do it, right? It seemed like he was wanting to go again, but I think we all kind of knew like this is a really bad idea. And it was just like the spur of the moment. And then I don't know, she just wasn't when she talked, she just wasn't relatable. Like it felt very like robotic, It didn't feel like there was any soul in there. It felt forced. It wasn't authentic.
Well, at times, because when she took out her tough attitude, like the prosecutor in herself, like she did in some of the congressional hearings, she delivered a very powerful message at times. But other times it seemed like a weak message. So Doughboy is asking, what did they say around messaging? They were talking about they need to really talk about messaging. Like people are losing their health insurance premiums, which do matter. A lot of people care about that. So Doughboy, I'm answering your question. They were talking about, the reduction in Medicaid and losing your health insurance and be able to buy groceries. And those things matter. I agree. But I don't know. It just seems like half of America or close to half America it doesn't care if they're voting against their best interests or not. If you don't have the right messenger to either promote hope or hate, right? Like, hate or hope works in politics. And that's been proven. Like, and you can go back to Obama. He was a great orator. He was able to deliver a message better than, of course, Hillary was completely unlikable. And then, of course, you had Bernie that got basically shoved to the side during the Hillary thing. And then, of course, you had Biden, which was, he's a dinosaur and he's been in politics for 50 years. So it just seems like they're shooting themselves in the foot. And they're just thinking, this group last night was just thinking about it has to be better messaging. And I'm like, no, the person comes first. Whether you like it or not, the messenger comes before the messaging.
Have you seen this guy that I've recently noticed from Texas? I have to find, it's like Tellerico or something. He's out of Texas.
He's running for office?
Well, I think he's running for either the Senate or Congress. I'll have to find his name real quick. But
Republican or Democrat?
I believe he's a No, he's a Democrat.
Okay.
But when you say the messenger,
Doughboy says, Doughboy knows. Doughboy, you know everything. Travis Tallarico.
Yeah, James. He's kind of like, he reminds me of Obama because he speaks really well. He seems like he's got it all together. But it often fears me though. Like it just feels like, I don't know. Obama could convince you that you should put your shoes on the wrong foot and that it was the right thing to do. Like he was that convincing.
So
Like,
it was Reagan, right? Reagan, Clinton, Obama, they all had that gift.
yeah, which is good. But I feel like where they go wrong is like they know how to meet people where they are, but they don't convey the message of the vision of like what the next step, like what they want to do to help, and then how that they don't reflect on what that looks like on the things that they want to accomplish. They're really good at making sure that people, it's almost like commiserating. He wants to make sure that people feel like they're being heard. And that's good, but that's emotion. And I don't feel like, I think we need some logical answers and solutions to what we're going to do.
It seems to me when you talk about people who are able to get into strong positions of leadership and attract a certain group of people, not everybody, but sometimes they're just generational leaders that can attract a very large swath of America. But as long as you say it loud enough and confidently enough, even if whatever you're saying is complete gibberish,
Yeah,
For some reason, people don't even hear the words and they just are like, oh, that guy knows what he's doing,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
It's just articulating. Reagan had an ability to communicate clearly. Clinton did, and of course Obama did as well. But everybody else since then, in between those people, has been like sort of manufactured. Bush has been just, George Bush Senior and Junior were just basically like the Hillary Clintons of the Republican Party. They were just like, oh, this is going to be our candidate. Doesn't matter what you say, right?
yep,
And Hillary was the same way. And then, of course, Kamala was basically never popular, never had even a chance of winning her primaries in the Democratic Party. And yet the Democratic Party said, no, we don't need primaries. We're just going to say this person who was never popular to begin with, she's going to be, because she's vice president. Like, the parties are the problem, right? The parties are just ridiculous and they shoot themselves in the case of the Democrats, they've been shooting themselves in the foot because their candidates over the past 3 cycles have been just awful. And
yeah,
I would say the Republican candidate has also been awful, but he says shit that's just confident and loud, and that seemingly is enough.
exactly. And I think that may have been what, that's why Trump, I think, got the advantage that he did with the younger generation. But he started implementing different things like going on podcasts. And I don't know if we can completely contribute that to him. I think it may be due to the fact that he's got a teenage son that I believe is kind of in tune to that culture, being on live streaming, going on TikTok, going on these big streamers that are very influential with those large groups of kids or people, and he used it to his advantage. But I think the people aren't dumb, and I think they're not. He did a good job at trying to show himself as he was somebody that you could relate to, and I never felt that with Kamala. I really didn't. And frankly, there's not really a lot of them that I have felt that way with, except, well, I can't even. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy. I like the way he talks, but then I get concerned with who's behind. He was part of a Soros type deal, and I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't. Yeah,
He's
but I
he's
guess
part of
there's
that Silicon, like it seems the Silicon Valley culture, this, technology culture in Silicon Valley, which I know quite well. It's like they're not grounded at all. Yeah, they sometimes can speak well, but they don't have any clue of what it likes to be a normal American that has to work a 9 to 5 job. They're so far away removed from reality that sometimes their intelligence makes them sound like they're a good fit, but I wouldn't trust that guy at all for anything.
right. And that we get into it's the same. If it's just the grinder pit, it's just the same blender, the same bird. What do they say? It's
Two birds,
both
same
wings.
feather.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like they're all part of the same thing, but it just it'd be refreshing to have like an average Joe or, somebody that was just completely on their game, or maybe not. Maybe they're not on their game. Maybe they just have to be able to convey their message properly, right? And be like, look, this is where I think we need to go. This is where I'd love to see this end up. And and they ask the people to come along with them for the ride, but it just like there's so much noise today. It's almost it's it's debilitating how much noise there is.
Yeah, yeah. We got a lot of good comments. Polaris is back. Welcome, Polaris. Thanks for joining. We had a small crew here today. I just don't understand these lives sometimes. Sometimes we get just double digits or single digits. And yesterday, what do we had? Close to a couple hundred, right?
Yeah.
Upstate Michael's back. Welcome, Upstate Michael. Give Vivek a chance at governor. See how it plays out. Is he running for governor? Is he trying to do
Believe
governorship?
so.
I'm interested. I'm going to need to do more research on Vivek because I haven't done much recent research. I know him pretty well from the past. And it seems like a lot of people, I've heard some Gen Zers talk about him as well, but I don't want any billionaire. I know it, I don't want any billionaire silver spoon person, unless they've been truly self-made and have conducted themselves with integrity. I just think it's all ridiculous to have anyone as a billionaire come up. unless they really are grounded. Like Cuban has a lot of course, ego and can be very arrogant at times, but he's down to earth. I mentioned Cuban. Like I'd rather see someone like that. If it has to be a billionaire, I'd rather see someone like Cuban.
Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
Well, I guess he did get it from the mud, as they would say that, as the young kids would say it. He got it from the mud, at least from what I know about him. But again, we're still playing into that same pool of people that have been so far removed from what reality is. I mean, how can they truly relate to the average Joe? I mean, I don't. It's difficult.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I always come back to, like, if we ever really want to try and do something, Cuban, upstate Michael, Cuban. Yeah, he's an arrogant, right? Yeah, I mean, he's arrogant, but he's also at times grounded. Like, I don't know what to make of Cuban. One day I like him, the next day I hate him. You know, but I can say that against most billionaires.
I could say that about family members.
That's true, right? Good point. Absolutely. So Sonny, we got a new someone who's going to join. It's Sonny joining.
Hey,
And what's up?
I'd just like to get a word in. You know what? I voted for Trump in 2016. I'm not a Democrat, nor am I a Republican. I vote for whoever I feel like is going to do a fair job, and I hold people accountable for their campaign promises. Trump in 2016 made a campaign. One of his campaign promises of many was he was going to fix, repeal, and replace Obamacare and give us a wonderful health care system for those people that are self-employed and for those people who don't have an employer that buys their health insurance. Now, here we are in 2025, and we have no health care plan, and he wants to completely gut it. And people's and just like my girlfriend, she's got a small farm. She buys insurance through the marketplace. Her insurance is going to go up to $1,800 a month with a $10,000 deductible. This is why people are pissed off. This is not about giving shit to the illegals because it's against federal law. And the Republicans have turned this into that for a fact. I'm 60 years old, and I've voted Democrat. I voted Republicans. This is why our government is shut down. Exactly why it's shut down.
You mean because the Democrats want to extend these healthcare, benefits to, for more than just a year, right? They want to make sure this doesn't destroy everyone that's seeking health, that has healthcare through the marketplace.
Right. Can you imagine paying $1,800 a month for health insurance and having a $10,000 deductible before anything's covered?
Yep.
This is why, and TikTok has gone crazy. Oh, they just want to give it to illegals. No, they don't. That's against federal law. You could fact check me all you want.
No, you're right. I know that. Absolutely.
This is, and this is about, I mean, should healthcare be free? No, but people were paying into that. And now it's going to be unaffordable for anybody. Trump said that Obamacare's, it's not working. Well, where's your plan that you said you were going to give us when you ran in 2016? Right. Where's it at? Because if we would have had this, the government probably wouldn't have been shut down right now.
Yep.
Well, for someone like me, I'm self-employed, and I actually don't carry health insurance because at the end of the day, when I had to look at the numbers of how much it cost to still having a deductible, still having to pay X amount of dollars in order for my insurance to actually kick in, I couldn't afford it.
Let me say this one thing. So I'm going to open up a little bit about my health, which is not good, but I just had a complete spinal fusion. And I was out of work for almost 3 years, and Medicaid paid for it. And they want to cut Medicaid. And in order for me to get disability, you have to be going to the doctor. And so therefore, if they got Medicaid, now you won't be able to get Social Security. I mean, you can go through your whole entire life savings, and we have no safety nets in place for anybody. And I should know more than anybody. I've been through this stuff. I've been through this, and I was very fortunate to get my spinal fusion. That was over $1 million. But I'm just saying, what I'm trying to say is, if you go without health insurance, it's just like playing the lottery, and it doesn't. You could be the healthiest person in the world, and you get into a car accident, you get that, and you only get one time to declare bankruptcy, and then That's it.
Do you think
And
this
so,
do you think this
you
is the
know,
issue that sort of breaks the camel's back?
yep, absolutely.
It might be.
And nobody's bringing this up. You can fact check me. Go back just look up all the campaign promises that Trump made in 2016. Mexico was going to pay for the wall. They haven't paid a dime of it. And you know what?
Well,
I'm
Sonny,
not
you
just
you are
digging,
much too rational for most voters. I don't.
but you know what? I am not a hardcore Republican, and Biden did shit too. And you know what? What the American people need to do instead of all this fighting, influx fighting, and taking it out on each other. When you go and you go to vote, I don't care which party you're voting for. You can go online and print out their campaign promises at the end of 4 years. Check those boxes off and see how many campaign promises they fulfilled. But no, people don't want to do any of that. It's too much work. So
Well,
they would just rather listen
what was
to
his
Fox or
campaign prime?
CNN.
What was Trump's campaign promises written down on a website somewhere in 2020? Were there any?
I don't have them at hand, but I've went through all of them.
I don't
And
think there were any. I don't think there were any documented policy programs. In 2016, he did. I don't believe in 2020 he really had anything. There, of course, other than Project 2025.
Yeah, and the other thing is that people don't realize how many times they all lie, but Trump lies all the time. And I use AI, I use all kinds of tools because now I'm disabled. I can't do much during the day, so I sit in my recliner and I read and I read. All these news sources have stated how many times it's tens of thousands of times. And then the other thing why I didn't vote for Trump this time was because right when he was running for election, he was actually Bibles, endorsed Bibles with his initials on them, and selling gold watches. And guess where they're made?
Right, China, of course.
And and his sons, both Eric and Don Jr. have started a new cell phone company, and their cell phones are being built in China.
Interesting how that works.
I mean, you want to talk about a conflict of interest, and man, I'll tell you what, I got a college degree. Does that make me smart? No, it makes me educated. But I'll tell you what, some of the stuff on TikTok and, all the Republicans and the Democrats suck. They're just stupid. No, the stupid people out there are the ones that don't do any research. They just go vote. They listen to Fox or CNN or whatever, or their best friend. They have no facts to back up any of their claims or statements. But,
Well, that's what propaganda is, right? It's just who screams the loudest and who consumes the most misinformation. And that's what, you're obviously retired and now having some disabilities and you sitting around and read. But if you're 20 to 30 years old, you're busy with trying to figure out how you're going to move forward in your life. And all you're trying to do is worry about getting possibly a girlfriend, a boyfriend, how you're going to pay your rent. Are you going to be able to afford a house? And you don't have time to do any research. So you're basically just drinking from the water hose, which is TikTok and Instagram.
Exactly. Right? Yeah. And, and the other thing too is, I do agree with Kamala Harris on this one. Now, I'm not saying everything, but she goes, you have given the American people false hope because you promised you were going to bring prices down in general. And this just goes to show you our president of the United States can't even do math. You guys, I'm going to give you guys some credit here. And this is his statement, he said this, eggs are down 1,400%. So you take $6 a dozen and you subtract 1,400%, you end up with a negative number. So that means you could go to the store and just get free eggs.
Well, you're going to get paid to just take the eggs.
Right.
Exactly, whatever. But I just can't. You know what though? You don't even have to do any research. All you have to do is just listen very carefully when Trump speaks, and use your intuition that you have. We've all been given intuition for a reason. And I'm like, I'm not the brightest bulb out there, but eggs 1,400, they're down 1,400%. And then, I didn't even know what that Bad Bunny thing was. I was like, what the hell is that? Well, that guy is a Puerto Rican rapper, and Trump does not even know that Puerto Rico is part of the United States.
Right.
That is a fact. And what I'm afraid of is that, and I don't know what's going to happen. I have no crystal ball. All I can tell you from talking to people, this country is in sad shape, very sad shape. The economy is terrible. My job before I retired a couple years ago was outsourced to India, um, and that's been going on. That one was going on under the Biden administration.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm with you,
and so,
Sonny. And if you haven't seen my channel before, like, I wake up every morning like most of us do, and if you turn on the news or you think about politics at all, you're just like, we're so frustrated. Like, we know that everything is so screwed up, and that's why when every day I wake up, and for about the past 5 years, I'm like, what can we do? And I'm like, well, you just don't want the pendulum to swing back to blue and back to red. It's like, it's so much more, it's bigger than all of that. And that's why this
I,
conversation about corruption is like, I can never think of anything that has to happen first is get rid of the money and the influence from politics. And then if we could figure out how to, bring people with moral integrity into office, and only if it's a temporary civic service and it's not a career. Like, I know it sounds mad, it's crazy, or some people think it's impossible, but that's the only way I ever see us ever getting back on track. Because otherwise, it's just constantly a pendulum back and forth.
to your point, before I graduated from college back in 2021, or I'm sorry, what am I thinking? 2016, and I went back to school at night and got my degree. And the very last class that I had was statistics, and they showed on there, both Republicans and Democrats, their net worth when they entered Congress, and their net worth of what they came out. They all turned into millionaires, and even Biden was caught saying, "Hey." When he was running, they're playing these old videos of him. When he was running, he said, when you run for office, he said, everybody and their brother wants something.
Yep.
They do. It's called constituents
Yeah,
and special interest groups.
and they're never going to vote for anything that prevents them from enriching themselves, right? So whether it's Republicans or Democrats, so they're never, stock trading is the obvious one. Like, you shouldn't be able to enrich yourself through stocks when you're in office. The vast majority of the population believes that, but even though the vast majority of the people believe that or want that, neither of them will do it, right? They propose a bill from time to time, but it just dies quietly, right? Whenever it becomes an issue, they say, oh, a bill's going to be proposed, but then you never hear about it again. A week later, it's gone and no one talks about it.
And the whole other thing of it that really pisses me off, and I've just like got to stay away from this stuff sometimes, but like a lot of these, well, it's not just it's the younger people, it's people my age around 60 and stuff. And if you don't support Donald Trump, then you must be a leftist.
That's right. People say that to me all the time. Like, oh, you must be a
or
lefty.
you must be a Democrat. No, I'm not. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it's just crazy. And I don't agree with what people call the left. And I don't agree with some of the Democrats, Republicans. It's mathematically impossible. But what needs to be done is we need to start holding our officials and our leaders accountable. And it needs to be done in such a way that, you can't elect somebody you shouldn't elect somebody because of their looks or because of their personality. It should be an open interview, like they're getting interviewed for a job. What are you going to do for this country? I know they do some of it, but they should document and publish it somewhere. If it was any of us working for a private company, we get yearly reviews and they set goals out. And then you have quarterly reviews and they ask you, well, how are you doing on your objectives that we gave you? Nobody does that to the president or for any of the rest of the members of Congress. They just get to do whatever they want. They don't get
Well, you also have to remember, though, they are actually being accountable. They're just not being accountable to the people, the voters. They're actually being accountable to their donors, right? So there is accountability, and it's just to the donors.
Yep, that's true. But this country is just, I don't know, man. And I hate to say that.
That's why Mr. Global and I are here.
I think that, I think we're going to have a revolution in this country.
I think there's a way to do it without a revolution. I think you're breaking up a little. You're breaking up a little bit on me, Sonny.
Yeah.
All right. Upstate Michael is here as well. Yeah, I can hear you, but we have another guest on here as well. I'm going to ask because Upstate Michael, it sounds like you may have a TV on in the background. So if you can just mute that, then we'll probably be able to hear you better.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I did mute it. Is it better?
Yeah, much better. How you doing? Now, I know you and
You're right.
I've heard you in the comments in the past say you don't agree with everything I say. And I think I responded to you and it's like, I don't care if you agree with everything I say. I only care about one thing. Do you agree with the most important issue is eliminating corruption from government? If we can agree on that, then like we're all good.
I'm all in on getting rid of both sides of the aisle and getting rid of any campaign finance money that should be provided equally to each candidate. They got X amount to spend, and that's it. I'm all on board with that. But what this has turned into, last say 2 or 3 times I've tuned in. It's a Trump bashing session, and it's basically what I've heard the last 2 or 3 times I've tuned in. So I listen for a little bit, but then I get out. Sometimes I put in my little snarky comments. But,
Well, you
I
know, listen, hey,
apologize
if
for
the
that.
Democrats, when the Democrats do things as bad, like obviously I can't control what the guests say, and I will bash Trump when it's needed as an independent. I don't care where you sit. You know, he has plenty of things that could be bashed on, and I think you would agree with that, or maybe not.
Oh, absolutely. He drives me nuts, and I think he drives most other Republicans nuts, except for the full on board MAGA Republicans who will support no matter what he says. But there's a lot that was said tonight, such as the healthcare issue. You know, everybody forgets that Obama flat out went on national TV and says, "Hey, you know what? If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like the health plan you're currently on, you can keep your health plan you're currently on."
And he
He
didn't.
also said that pharmaceutical costs are going to plummet.
Well,
None of that.
wasn't he, and I could be wrong. I think he was mostly correct, even though a lot of people couldn't do that. It didn't apply to everybody, but as in the masses, most people were able to keep their existing doctors, right? Unless they chose a different healthcare plan.
No, you had to go on Marketplace. And matter of fact, they came up with a plan. If you remember that if you didn't buy healthcare through the Marketplace, they were going to fine you. Because people were saying, "Hey, we weren't, you know, we can't afford this. We're not gonna buy this." Well, the Democrats come out and says, "You know what? If you don't buy your healthcare on Marketplace, you're gonna face a fine." That's a fact.
Was it a fine or was it, obviously it was a taxation issue with taxation, right? I forget exactly what it was.
Yeah, I didn't have it for a couple years when I was self-employed, and it was like an additional fee or a tack on to the tax burden at the end of the year.
Yep. Well, listen, where do you stand on, I don't normally get into issues too much, Michael, but we'll keep it short. Like, where do you stand on, as a Republican, where do you stand on health insurance? Is it a right or is it not?
I don't think it should be a single payer system because I winter in Florida with Canadians that turned out to be some of our very good friends, and none of them care for their insurance up there
You know,
because
no, sorry, keep going.
like they've got to wait so long to get in. And I'm also not, you know, I'm 3 hours from Buffalo, New York, but I've done a lot of fishing on Lake Ontario. And I'll tell you, the Canadians across the bridges up there to come and get healthcare in Buffalo, I mean, they're there all the time. Just go through any one of the hospitals up in Buffalo, look at the license plates. There's a ton of Canadians that come because you know what? They're 8 months, 10 months, 12 months out to get to specialists up in Canada.
So you're using that one example. You think that some of the people you know from Canada, and to think that that's enough evidence that we shouldn't have a single payer system?
Yeah, I don't know how a single payer system can work.
Well, it works in 37 other
I
countries.
don't.
So I go to Europe a lot, and I actually play hockey with a lot of Canadians as well. And there are cases, like you said, that where there are situations where they have to wait a little bit longer for something that's not life-threatening and so forth. But I also know that most of them actually go back for their health care. And as someone who spends a lot of time in Europe and has family in Europe, you cannot even get remotely close to comparing France's healthcare system in general, not at the highest levels. If you're super wealthy, we have access to a lot of technologies as well. But France and Germany and Sweden, they have incredibly great healthcare systems.
Yeah, that's very possible. I
You know,
am
I just don't
eligible
think
with Europe. I was deployed over there for 6 months, uh, 2 different times. And, but I never researched or listened or heard anybody or discussed
what do you think? Are you on
any
Medicaid or
health insurance.
Medicare?
Yes, I'm on
And
Medicare.
what do you think of Medicare compared to the
Uh,
private health insurance that you probably had when you were younger?
yeah, well, the stuff I had through my work was pretty good. When I got out of work, until I reached Medicare, I had to pay a lot more for my prescriptions than I do once I hit Medicare. My prescription costs went down to, well, most of them are zero now, but
Well, I would say
so
what.
that is a good thing.
Sorry, I mean,
There are some good points, but and people bring up Social Security. I mean, Social Security is not a
entitlement,
we paid into that. We paid into that. It's paid for
right?
by the American workers.
Well, so I used
And
to
if,
be.
and if we
Sorry, I know we
they
have a
would have
delay.
put, I'm sorry, if they would have put our money, if they need to privatize it, because if they would have put our money, if we were able to put our money in the markets, what went into Social Security, we'd all be multimillionaires now.
Absolutely, right.
I think I don't think healthcare should be a for-profit industry or pharmaceuticals or any of that. I don't think it should be a for-profit. I think it should be a reflection of maybe inflation or maybe like the population of a certain area that you designate a percentage to, help expand or improve different things. But I don't think it should be for profit. I don't think doctors though should be taxed. I don't. I think they're an essential worker, and I
I
think they
would
need to.
like. I think all people on the right should think about it differently. I think about conflicts, just inherent conflicts of interest. And I'm not saying that government healthcare is always the best, but I've had Medicaid during COVID after I left my job, and I went on Medicaid and I had an ACL replacement. It cost me zero. I got to pick my doctor. It was incredible. I've actually had it done twice under Medicaid. And I paid a lot of money into the system through my taxes. And I used to pay over $2,000 a month for my family when I had my own businesses for healthcare, right around $1,900 a month for like 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I had really good health insurance, but it was $1,900 a month, and it was still shit though, and
Yeah.
it was still horrible. And I said, well, I would rather pay $1,900, wait half of that or a quarter of that, because I think the way how much we pay into the healthcare system as corporate healthcare or for-profit healthcare is far more than if I paid it in via taxes. So it's still a tax. So whether I pay it as a tax to the government or I pay it as a sort of tax to a corporation or to that has for-profit healthcare, the end of the day, it comes down to simple conflict of interest. A for-profit healthcare system doesn't need to keep us healthy. They actually want to keep us always a little bit sick because that's residual revenue. So if we're always a little bit sick, that makes them a lot of money. However, the government wants to keep us healthy because if we're not healthy, we can't work. And if we can't work, we can't pay taxes. So there is a complete alignment in societies, the government wanting to keep people healthy so that they're actually working and paying taxes, which comes back in so many ways. So I would ask people on the right, as I think healthcare as an independent absolutely should be, because all the Western civilizations that have strong the world that has great medicine have all government healthcare, whether it's Sweden, Finland, Japan, Italy, France. I mean, they all have it and it all works exceptionally well overall. It doesn't mean it's better in all cases. It just means it's better for its entire society. And that wouldn't preclude people from also getting private healthcare if they wanted to, because we already have healthcare that's government healthcare, a single payer system. It just happens to only apply to those people that are either old enough to get Medicaid, Medicare, and young enough, if you're not making enough money, then you can get Medicaid depending in your state.
I always thought Aflac was kind of funny. The supplemental health insurance. You're like, okay, so I have to have health insurance, and now you're going to sell me a product for supplemental health insurance. I thought I thought that's what my health insurance was supposed to do in the first place. So now I got to pay
When
more.
right,
And what Obama
but when
proposed, by
you
the way, was to say they really pushed hard for let government compete with corporations. So you can have your choice. You can continue moving along with your corporate healthcare, or you could pay into a single filer system. So they wanted to obviously say, hey, you don't have to do this. You could pay. But that had to come out of the Obamacare bill because the Republicans were completely against that because they knew what it would do. It would end up decimating the healthcare industry at the for-profit level, not doctors and so forth, but it would have completely decimated them. And we all got fooled into believing that.
I think when you find out you get into Medicare, I can't speak for other people, but in my case, I absolutely bought Blue Cross Blue Shield supplemental insurance because it just gives you for not a whole heck of a lot of money, like $86 a month. It gives you so much more advantages that Medicare doesn't cover. So a lot of people that I know are on supplemental insurance and Medicare.
Yeah. Would you have barked if you had Medicare your whole life? Wouldn't you have preferred that? I mean, honestly, I think I can sense it in your voice, but wouldn't you have preferred if you just had Medicare your whole life?
I don't know. Maybe not. I guess I'd have to know the
But
details.
shouldn't we
But
try?
here's another thing.
Shouldn't we at least try to go that route and have both, like what Obama proposed?
I don't know. I'd have to see the details. Devil's in the details.
Of course.
But here's the thing: my wife is a retired RN, and as far as Medicaid goes, you would not believe the fraud that's in Medicaid. I mean, I'm not talking.
I know United
you paid your
Healthcare.
taxes,
Absolutely.
but I can't tell you how many times. I mean, they will call an ambulance for anything. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
You know, you hear it on a police scanner here every day. You know, you have somebody that needs to go to the hospital. They call an ambulance. Why? Because it's free. They've had cases at our hospital down here where a woman called an ambulance to go to the hospital. When she got to the hospital, she just got out of the ambulance and went to go play bingo. She just wanted a ride.
Yeah.
That's all. That's all she used that ambulance for, and that's honest God's truth. That happened.
Well, we can walk and chew gum though, right? I mean, that's ambulance companies knowing that they could bill Medicaid at crazy rates just to get a ride around, right? And that fraud is going unchecked.
I kind of agree with you on the medicine for profit because there's so much corruption in the medical field also.
I think it's a really simple rule in society.
We need a different system.
I think it's a really simple rule for both Republicans and Democrats. When you're growing and no matter who you are, like you should be able to afford housing. If you have a good job and you're making money, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to afford housing or food or even transportation. And then of course, healthcare is along with that. Like what kind of society are we if it is difficult to ever afford housing? Let's go if you're Gen Z now, and then you don't know if you're going to be able to have healthcare, and you can't leave your job sometimes because you're worried about losing your healthcare. Like, what kind of country is that? Like, I don't think it's too much to ask. And some people would say it's progressive or liberal policies. It's bullshit. That's not. It's really not. It's just simple human decency as a society. And I'm not arguing against we should be really tough on fraud and overspending and the devil in details, like you said, Upstate Michael. But those four things, like, come on, you have to be able to protect your elderly, your poor. You have to have some social safety nets. And I always come back to, I'm much more worried about if the billionaires and the corporations were paying what they used to pay and they're paying their fair share, we would have an additional $2 to $3 trillion to be able to pay for this stuff. And then, of course, you wouldn't need to pay for it through your corporation or if you're self-employed or any of this nonsense, right? So those four things to me just seem like simple bedrocks. They don't seem like liberal policies or right-wing policies or whatever they might be, conservative policies. They just seem like common sense decency.
Really does.
Right. I agree. Go ahead, Mr. Lowell.
No, I was just agreeing with TK. I mean, I'm 31 and, growing up, my grandma and watching her struggle, my grandparents struggle, and, my mother and my dad, there just comes a there's this tipping point, right? Where are we going to become complacent and just keep getting walked all over, or is somebody going to do something about it? I don't know. It really infuriates me because I don't know what my future looks like. I don't, I work a hard job. I try to help people with their houses. I'm a handyman, construction business, and I was able to buy this house 4 years ago with the help of my mother and my grandfather, and my bills keep going up. My, medical bills keep going up, and it looks it looks very dim at times. It's like, what are we gonna do here?
And we have to unite behind it, right? We have to figure out a way to have more people, hundreds of people talking on social media about, stop fighting with one another. Because we go, upstate Michael, you're probably more right than I am, but I have a lot of conservative values as well, or fiscally conservative. And I can talk to people on the left. And when we all just talk like humans, we realize that we all want basically the same things. Yeah, how we get there might be a little bit different, but these are not complicated problems. Everybody makes them complicated. These solutions are simple. If you just had, like, you could prevent spending more money if you taxed properly, if taxed fairly. You would be able to pay down the debt if you wanted to, or at least you could absolutely pay down the debt, or you could certainly not spend more than we actually bring in. And you could pay for social safety nets that would do so much good to people in need, whether it's people who lost their jobs or homeless. Like the amount of money we spend on policing homelessness and moving encampments and all this other stuff, you could use that money to actually maybe prevent people from becoming homeless in the first place.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I know for a fact also because I do have family in law enforcement, my son and my daughter-in-law. But there's 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 a whole lot of people, and maybe a higher percentage of people in jails that don't belong in jails, that
Yeah.
belong in an institution getting the help they need, whether it's in care or outpatient. But mental health is not being funded in this country at all, and it all boils down to when at the end of the day there's corruption.
Yeah.
The billionaires, they're paying the tax that they're being required to pay. They're not cheating.
No, they are
They're
cheating.
do
They just manipulated the laws. So it depends on what you consider cheating, right? If they've manipulated the laws through their money, then I consider that cheating, whether you think it's technically cheating.
No, the Ways and Means Committee, they write the tax code. Our politicians write the tax code, and they're following the tax code. If not, they'd be prosecuted.
Well, I think
But there's so many loopholes. They're
Y-
getting loopholes.
yeah, they're getting the
from their-
loopholes,
from
but
the-
our politicians aren't writing the
'cause
laws,
they're-
though.
Yeah,
No, they're voting on the laws. The lobbyists are writing the laws.
the tax code. I'm saying the tax code.
Right, but the tax code back in the 60s and 70s used to say that, the highest tax rate was 90%, and now it's much lower. And of course, corporations used to pay 30% of all the revenue. Now it's only 8%.
Yeah, well, they're manipulating the tax code in order to
Right,
end
right.
up paying zero taxes.
That's right.
And
Should a
they
company
shouldn't
like Amazon ever, or even Trump's, what was Trump's empire called? Should they ever have to ever have a year where they don't pay any taxes? Like, think about how absurd that is. I don't care
No.
how many write-offs they have.
no, it is. It's and I just lead that to our corrupt tax code. I
Yes,
mean, it's not fair.
there you go. So we're on the same page. Yeah. Nicole
But
had a
that
great
doesn't
comment.
that
Nicole,
doesn't make them bad people, right? That just makes them smart people,
oh,
right?
come on.
Oh,
Hey,
No,
I
that
got
makes
you
them
there.
manipulative people who are using their power and their influence to get things their way. That has no decency to the system that helped you get there. Like, no, to me, that's bad people.
Well, okay, I mean that's true. I guess I'm just when I look at it as like I look at it as like as an individual when you're trying to do something, you have a business, you're trying to pay as little as you possibly can. And if there are ways to do that, normally you would do those
You're
things.
thinking of it from a small business perspective. Absolutely. It makes sense, right? You have certain things, but they have more things. So when they build a company, if they start a new company and they raise billions of dollars to start a company and they take all their earnings in stock until their assets are worth X amount, they're paying nothing, right? But then
True, true. Yeah, that's different.
and then they roll it over to other companies like, Elon Musk has, was it $500 billion, right? Supposedly, but he does, those are wrapped up in,
That's
in
stocks.
stocks and so forth.
Right,
Right.
right.
They've got buildings full of lawyers and
Of
accountants that are making sure they
Right.
don't pay any
Well, just like
taxes.
law and order, right? There's different laws. There's a different justice system for different peoples of different races. You may disagree with it, but it's true. They have different races and different economic classes. There's different rules in law and order, and there's different rules in taxation based on how wealthy you are or what type of jobs you have, etc. And there's just a basic unfairness across the system that we all know exists.
Yeah, it does.
But Nicole had a great comment here. Nicole said that's not correct. Most Republicans don't want health care because it's socialism to them. Nicole's right. It's a great comment. The problem with that is that people don't know what socialism is. Like, no one knows. The vast majority of American doesn't know what socialism is. Socialism, where all industries in your country belong to the state and to the people. So a combination of communism and socialism. So basically, any corporation you start is responsible back to the state, is ultimately owned by the people of the state. That's socialism, right? And that word is been tarnished because socialism is what China's economic system works on, right? So if you create a great big company in China, but the government says, you know what, we don't want you around anymore, we make you disappear, and now the company is ours. That's what socialism is, where the government is basically ultimately in control of all industries and all corporations. And that's what's a shame, that people think that just because we would move healthcare to a government industry, they think that's socialism. And that is social capitalism, but it's not socialism. And that's a shame that people
Yeah,
don't know what the definition is.
yeah, yeah. That's a very good point because when you think of it that way, you get a chance to wrap your head around the whole ball game. And it's all semantics. They want us fighting each other.
Yeah.
They want discourse in the country. They really do. And your whole uh, platform here is to beat that.
Right.
That's what your goal is.
Yeah, that's the goal. Maybe in years to come, there's more people start talking about it, and who knows, right? At least we're trying to do something, and I appreciate you always coming on and watching these, even though we may not always agree on everything. Again, I have my own personal beliefs about issues, but I'm never going to try and shove those down. I'm going to try and convince people that maybe I'm right, but someone can convince me that I'm wrong. That's totally fine. But we all know, like the three of us here and most people on the call realize that that issue we're talking about, eliminating corruption, I hardly ever get anyone that questions that,
Yeah.
right?
I'd be curious
All
to
right.
hear what your take is on everything, TK.
Yeah, I need to speak up sometimes. All right.
We
Well,
all do.
yeah. Thanks, Upstate Michael. Thanks for watching, and jump in
Okay.
anytime.
Okay.
We'll
Take
see
care
ya.
now.
All right, we're going to need to come back. I hate to say it, sounds ridiculous, but I'm going to be like the motive. My motive is always very clear. Like, we need as
Yeah.
many people as possible. So if you have any ideas, Mr. Global, or anyone in the comments as well, what issues should I talk about? Because, it's great having a few people in here and having these good discussions, but yesterday's conversation, we had many more people. And at some point I'm going to have to figure out, how do I be a little bit more controversial for the single purpose of the goal is to get the message out wider.
I think I hear you say that, and I've noticed that the number of people at times can be discouraging, but I think I think part of it has to do with the fact that he just took office. We're 9 months in. We're not in that season quite yet, right? Yet I feel like we're laying the
Good
foundation.
point.
You're when you're building a house, you lay the foundation. We're allowing that you're allowing that opportunity to be there. And I
Yeah.
think it's just the persistence. It's the consistency. It's the persistence. Because then once that season finally hits, where people are starting to come in to figure it all out again, then this is here, you know?
Time and pressure, right? Time and pressure.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not too discouraging, man, whether it's 5 people or 200 people or 500 people. It's always still kind of cool. But you like to see some growth. And I don't know, maybe the account is on probation because of what happened last night. Who knows, right?
Well,
You never know.
I think it was Greg. I blame Greg.
What, did he say something in the comments?
So when I was watching you, this guy Greg kept commenting, but you could tell that he was very he wasn't a good he wasn't a good watcher. He was upset with you, and
Hmm.
he was mad at you. And I made a couple comments to him, but it almost seemed like I was going to ask you, I was like, "Hey man, can I be your moderator so we could kick some of these people?" 'Cause I don't know. That's just what I noticed.
Is that what the moderators do? Is they tend to watch out if anyone's getting out of hand, so to prevent you from getting booted?
Yeah, so you bring them into, if somebody's saying derogatory terms or saying stuff that's really bad, they can mute them for X amount of times. They can totally block the account. They can moderate the chat so that, somebody can't come in and just spam stuff, right? And
Right.
annoy everybody that's watching. So,
Oh, you're welcome anytime. I did notice that in the live that I was in last night in another person's live, they had a moderator. I don't know
yeah.
how active they are, if they're just looking for certain keywords and so forth. But the people that are here, I appreciate that you are here. Some of the lives have a lot more people, and I hope that over time we'll convince more people to be here.
I've heard if you just say you love Israel,
Oh
like if you
boy.
just say I love Israel and then watch what happens.
Oh, Mr. Global, you got to ban Jan. I think Jan's asking to be banned. Mr.
Oh,
Global wants me gone. See ya. Thanks for sticking around, Jen. Does anyone else want to join and talk about eliminating corruption or maybe propose something else that might be a more unifying message? So if you do, please enter the box. They call it the box. I hear other people calling it a box. I'm sounding like trying to be cool here. Enter the box.
I wouldn't get rid of you, Jan. You haven't upset me quite yet. I have noticed that she's been singling me out though in the comments at times.
Oh, look at that. I don't know. That may be an admirer. Nicole's saying you may just need to restart a live. I noticed that sometimes when you come on again with a different topic or the same thing, and it's just later, it gets exposed to more people. I think that's what Nicole is saying. If those of you that are watching haven't followed before, please follow. We're trying to do something different than you probably hear on pretty much any other talk. But yeah, so no one is
Well,
in the box.
I shared this almost every time, so it's
Well,
just a
thank you
slow
much.
growth.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, there was like 500 people on average on them. So we just don't know what's going on. That's okay. Hopefully I'll grow on the YouTube side of things as well. But I need to do more videos. So anyone else
So,
want to restart it? Brosa? Doughboy, I'm going to go get some dinner. It happens every
Doughboy.
time around this time. Doughboy, I'm going to get some dinner. I'm definitely coming back this evening. If anyone wants to come back, if you have any thoughts on what the topic should be, I have actually, let me read them off to you. So since those of you that are here, I'm going to read off some topics that I could have in the prompt. Maybe you can suggest, just give me a couple words of some random topics we can talk about. So, well, this one would go against last night, so I don't know if I want to go down this road. How mad will MAGA be if Ghislaine Maxwell gets a pardon?
Ooh.
So maybe, I mean, I don't know. Is it worth a shot? So that's one. So number one is how mad will MAGA be if Ghislaine Maxwell gets a pardon? So that's a topic I've wanted to possibly talk about it. Let's see. We have, are you worried about AI? Is it an existential threat to humanity?
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and why isn't government doing much about it? How about this one? Why do you vote red or blue? Tell me why.
It's a good one.
That a good one? Yeah. All right. And then number 4, what issue is more important? Well, that's the one we're doing today. Okay. Is Trump cleaning up the deep state and the swamp? Tell me why. That's a little obviously more biased against the Republicans, but so, all right, let's see if anyone thinks. I don't see any comments coming through. Anything that sticks?
You could, I think you can do a poll.
Oh, that's right.
You could do a poll where people could answer which one.
Can a moderator do polls? Because that's what I found is that doing a poll is tough because when you start a live, you can't just sit there and, trying to copy and paste a
That's why
poll.
there's got to be a person in the background that's kind of putting it all together
Okay. Maybe in the
while the
future.
main guy. Yeah, it's just something to think about.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, here's another one. Has the American electorate ever really attempted to eliminate corruption? Maybe a little boring. Not to me, it's not, but what is all the hate about towards a certain country?
I love Israel. I love Israel
Maybe we
so
should do that
much.
one. What all the hate towards a certain country? And I won't name the country in the prompt.
Or just put do you love Israel like I do? Question mark.
Oh boy.
Uh,
All right. Doughboy says everything Epstein. That's right. Everything Epstein. That got me booted yesterday, but I think maybe I was a little too aggressive with talking about the rumored
it's too
belief.
soon.
Yeah, maybe
Too soon, TK. Too soon.
Too
After
soon.
last night,
Well, what
I
is?
was so ready too, because it wasn't going bad. And then all of a sudden your thing just disappeared. And I'm like, what happened? We were just getting to the good stuff.
Maybe we should do one about TikTok. No, like that will be instantly gone. Why did X platform ban me?
I love the AI thing because I think that's a really big thing right now. All these data centers that are going up.
Yeah, and Palantir collecting all the data and government, it's sort of like nuclear weapons, but nuclear weapons were controlled by society, its government, and AI, of course, is not controlled by, it's controlled by, mad scientists,
Conglomerates.
billionaires, and conglomerates.
Yep. That's terrifying.
So Doughboy says, have you had a discussion on the consolidation of media and impact it will have? We not specifically, but we've talked about it, the fairness doctrine and that sort of what happened with media and how most of media is owned by, but we have not had a singular discussion on that topic. So that's a good one as well. I should probably consider that. Whether all the lives get hundreds of people or not, I think I just run through various topics and try and build up, or the other option is to do what everybody else does and just find the topic that resonates the most and just keep doing that over and over and over, which that seems so boring. I don't know if I have it in me to just, tell me why you voted for Trump.
Does your analytics tell you what the average age of your viewers are?
It does. Yeah, it gives me half the people are female and half are male, which is really cool. I like that. The audience is Gen X and then followed by millennials, which was strange. Very few Gen Zers, even though we've had a lot more Gen Zers on here lately, which is really cool. And if people who are watching, like I always say it, like Gen Z is the most important generation of our lifetimes or of the current world, right? And I need to find a way to speak to more Gen Zers. There's been quite a few on here lately, which is awesome. But without getting to them eventually, like to more Gen Zers, like I think it's all for naught.
Do you have kids, TK?
Yeah.
Okay. Are
Yeah.
they Gen Z?
Yes, I have Gen Z and millennials.
Okay.
No, they're all Gen Z. They're all Gen Z.
That's why they're the most important generation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's because I see it
You're
firsthand.
concerned.
I see it firsthand on, the differences between when I was young versus when they're young, right? And I pay attention to what's going on TikTok and other places, and they're clearly because if they don't wake up, they're so screwed. It's so sad.
Yeah.
Yo,
It'd be interesting.
Sorry,
Be
I have someone on
interesting to
YouTube
see.
that says, "Oh, maybe I'm getting some more YouTube viewers." But like gladiator fingertips. Yo, I have a subject to raise. So welcome. Thanks for posting on YouTube. The Charlie Kirk unaliving was deep faked, and they are covering it up by oh yeah. Well, Gladiator. If I talk about that, that live will be on for about 30
Candace Owens
seconds.
has got that. Candace Owens is taking care of all of that stuff.
Yeah,
If you want to listen to something about that, go watch her.
that's right. Gladiator, you're gonna have to go watch Candace Owens. I don't do that sort of thing. As far as I go is the Epstein files, and it's mostly just because I'm curious myself because there's so much interest in it, and I always like to learn more about the Epstein files than any other sort of conspiracy. So it's deep faked, covering it up. Oh boy, yeah, going down the rabbit's hole there.
I mean, it's endless. It was so scary. Wow, that wasn't scary. I mean, you saw it, you watched it
Yeah,
on on here, and it was not blurred out.
and hundreds of kids were sitting there watching it in real time, and yet that's like the Sandy Hook
It,
ridiculousness, right?
I mean,
Doughboy, what are you
yeah.
talking about? It's sad. No one gives it attention, but Ellison and his trust fund's son, who never worked a day in his life, I think you're trying to say, is you're talking about,
Oracle.
yeah, Oracle and them getting access. You think the son is going to be involved in TikTok? I wonder if that's where he's going with that. Oh, his life owns the talk now. So I think that is where he's going with that. That wouldn't, I've always wondered, like, Larry Ellison is a dinosaur. He's not going to be around much longer either. He's just what an awful human being he is as well. But he does it under the
The
radar.
That last video I saw of him was so I was flabbergasted by what he said. Have you seen the one where he was talking about imagine a world where everybody's being watched and basically like forcing people to be good people and follow all the rules and
So I don't
I
know
was
which
like
one is he trying to promote fascism or communism? Because it's one or the other. Because both of them do that.
maybe it's both. A fascist communist. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's stunning that people don't connect the dots because that's really what it means, right? Someone mentioned, was it? I think you were on here with me as well. Someone mentioned that democracies always have higher crime rates because of the freedoms, right, that you're given. Something to
Yeah, I
that
guess that's
effect.
true.
And now Gladiator Fingertips is back, so he was saying on that his ring was on a change his fingers. I don't know if he's promoting the conspiracy or he is going against it. It's such bullshit. If the country really, they would throw Trump in jail, him. Okay, well, Gladiator, I appreciate you're here and watching on YouTube. I don't know if you're promoting the conspiracy. It sounds like you are from your comments. But I don't know, what would you say that there's 500 people, whatever the number was, watched him be unalived? So are they all making it up? I mean, that's not too far from where I am without giving out my location. I'm not that far away from that place. So anyway, also less crimes are reported to the public. Oh, that's a good point. I think in what Ellie Ball is saying is that in communism and fascism, less crimes are reported to the public, so it makes it seem like crime is much lower. There you go. That's true. Right. That makes sense. Good
Yeah, they
pointing
get
that
to
out.
pick and choose what they think is a problem.
Right, right. When you control the narrative, right, and you control the media, why would you want to share any information that makes you look bad, right? It's just natural, right? That's the difference between democracy and authoritarianism or communism. You're only going to share, Ellie Ball. Am I saying that right? Ellie Ball, thumbs up. Cool. All right, I'm going to go grab some dinner, come back. I think I'm going to do, would you vote? Why do you vote red or blue? Tell me why. Let's try
Yeah,
that one.
keep it simple,
Yeah.
right? What did it say? Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah, we need to have our own slogan instead of MAGA. We need to have something different as well.
I love Israel. That's our slogan.
Maybe. I
Sarcasm.
do think we need to do the other one which is why do so many people, what's all the hate towards a certain country about?
Do the poll. We got to do a poll so then people will interact with it.
Yeah. If you have any ideas for a poll, otherwise I'll think of one maybe for tomorrow or something. Okay. Food time. Thanks everybody for watching. Please like and, hit all the buttons. I'll see you guys later.
Thanks, TK.
See ya.
So you're thinking about getting into crypto?
Yeah, I am.
Have you checked out Coinbase?
Sortu and Vibes are both just proof positive that
Get cracking.
All right. Shutting down the live on YouTube as well. Gladiator Fingertips. Good luck to you. Thanks for watching. Hope you watch on future episodes and keep it real. What was the party name? I don't know what you're talking about, Will. I'm going to shut down a minute here for the new political party. Oh, if you were watching in that one, it's way too early to make a decision on anything like that. Like, it's kind of pointless because, who am I at this point? Nobody. There's no relevancy here. There's no movement. But I would think Integrity Party or Unity Party both sound boring, but, boring in politics is good. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I think Unity Party or Integrity Party, but I think there's probably a much better name to come up with in the future that would resonate more with more people. But it has to be about eliminating corruption from our political system. Party is like the last thing, well, not the last thing, but once there are 1 million or 10 million people following a movement, then I think we would worry about a party name or whether we do independence. Remember, I'm never going to be a politician. I am hoping to be the backbone of bringing people together and to organize a community and to create the technology platform where we can communicate so that we don't have to rely on YouTube or on TikTok or any other platform, because eventually you have to worry about being suppressed. So I want to be able to continue to build a community and maybe be sort of, for lack of a better word, maybe an explainer in chief, even though sometimes integrity, someone with the moral integrity that can, organize people together from both sides as a fierce independent. So I don't know. That's my thoughts. I'm not being very articulate today, but I'm going to come back in a little while and talk about a different topic. So thanks, Will S. and Gladiator Fingertips and anyone else who left comments. I have a really cool video coming up on YouTube soon, and hopefully I can get more subscribers here on YouTube. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you guys maybe in an hour or two.